Last month I did a video on this boot, the Adidas X F50 Elite, and this time I have the Adidas F50, but it's the laceless version. I believe it's going to be called the Adidas X F50 LL, just like the crazyfast is called the LL for the now laceless version. For those who have known that I've had these for about 3-4 weeks now, I'm sorry I haven't gotten any reviews out. I'm sorry everything's been kind of lacking. I was in the middle of moving apartments, trying to set up some sort of new studio area, something like that, where I have a better just space to film in instead of just standing in front of my collection all the time. And I finally got around to really testing these boots out, really wearing them, and I really feel that I have at least a confident opinion on what these boots are going to be and how they perform overall. What I would say is this boot resembles a lot of what the crazyfast LL and a little bit of what the speedportal LL is, and or were for that matter, and I did enjoy it. I did not enjoy this boot overall more than I enjoyed the laced version I have, but that doesn't mean that this is going to be a bad boot. So I think I have a decent idea on what the new Adidas X boots are going to be like in terms of how they line up. So this laceless version I have is the Adidas X F50 Elite, but I actually think it's the equivalent of the new Plus model, so the new crazyfast Plus, how it's lightweight and costs more. I believe that's what this model is going to be that I have. I do not have a 100% guarantee of this because I don't know anybody at Adidas who can confirm it, but I'm pretty sure from all the leaks I've seen online, the regular 0.1 version is going to be just like the LL here, but with laces, like with what we saw with the X crazyfast. The laced version of the crazyfast and the laceless are the same exact boot. The only difference is there's eyelets and laces, and for some reason it costs more for them to do less work with the laceless version. So I don't understand how that works, but I'm pretty sure that the 0.1 model is going to be this with laces. And now I'm going to jump into the rest of the review, and as always we're going to start with the sole plate. This sole plate I've already talked about before. It's called the Sprint Frame 360 sole plate, and it has a lot of similarities to the Adidas X Speed Flow and X Ghosted sole plates. They usually keep the same sole plate on two models and then they switch. So for example, the 18 and 19.1 both have the same sole plate, the Ghosted and Speed Flow, and then the Speed Portal and the Crazyfast both share the same sole plate. So now we have the new sole plate, and it has the middle toe picks just like the Speed Portal has, and I want to say even the Speed Flow has them. And then it also has the back studs of the Speed Flow and the Ghosted, which is the Speed Flow is a very, very well-received boot by both pros and by just all followers we have on our Instagram, that when we sell them, they sell out almost immediately, pretty much no matter the size for the Speed Flows. And I've even sent, I don't know, 20-30 pairs in the last 2 years to all the MLS clubs in the area because they prefer those boots. So it's nice that they brought that kind of feature back. I always thought it was a cool looking sole plate, and I'm also kind of happy there's no more carbon fiber, just because I really don't feel like the carbon fiber on any of the boots does anything. Like, yes, it gives it spring back, but to be honest, I really don't think it's going to provide any extra benefit than a normal plastic sole plate, or I guess it's more nylon sole plate that's going to have the same exact spring back. I could be wrong, I'm no scientist, but from my experience, I've never felt a drastic increase in performance. Overall, this sole plate does well. I wore it on a grass pitch and it was a little bit muddy, so it kind of wasn't able to grip that well. In that situation, I would have worn SG boots, but I wanted to test this boot out outside because finally I'm able to get out of the indoor turf fields that I've been training on and doing videos on the last couple of months. I'm just excited to finally get out on grass, but it just didn't do well on a really muddy pitch. However, I just got done playing in these in a game, just like a six-a-side league that I play in, and I just wanted to get a good idea of these boots before I did the review and just have it fresh in my mind, and they did well on turf. I didn't have any issues, no snags. It is called the 360 sole plate, and it has all these arrows pointing out all over the midfoot here, but I think it's just another normal sole plate. I'm interested to see how the turf sole plate's gonna look. I'm assuming it's gonna look something similar to at least the 4G version will look similar to the new Predator Elites 4G, and I'll show a photo of that here. And I have no clue what the AG is going to look like yet. I'll definitely get a pair AG and do a review on them because I'm excited to see what those AG pairs look like and how they perform. But this sole plate overall it did the job on turf, and it did the job on grass, kind of. It was muddy, so hopefully we'll see these boots perform well on just a normal grass pitch. I just haven't done it yet, and I figured it's time to get this review out. Now, the upper still has that Fiber Touch logo that I talked about before. And the thing with the Fiber Touch is I have no clue what it does because these still aren't officially released, and I don't know what Adidas's new tech is. So I actually think now that it has to be the kind of grip elements. I say grip elements, but kind of the texture elements on the outside of the boot. They cover almost the entire boot, the outside, the inside. It's not rubber. It just feels like some sort of plastic that has a little bit of like a coating or something. But I don't know. I didn't think I could do any sort of real crazy movement with these like you can with the Predator Edge or some other like rubber element boots. But you know, I guess it's a cool feature. It also still has the Sprint Web logo. So what that means to me is I think that it's the internal cage that's in this boot. And I think that's what a lot of these Sprint systems have been in the past. Again, I could be wrong, and we won't really know for sure for a little while until we get something more solid come out from Adidas or any other major retailer that does reviews or just puts the information out, but I'm assuming that that Sprint Web is the internal cage. The one-piece knit upper was okay. I feel like it did the job that any other one-piece knit upper would do, especially with it being a laceless football boot, but I don't really like laceless boots that much. I like the leather Copa Pure. That's probably the last and really only laceless boot I've really enjoyed wearing. And I didn't mind the laceless aspect of this boot. I felt like my touch was the same as it was with the laced version I have here, probably the plus version if you want to call it that. But you know, nothing really special there. The size I got was a 9 US. It's the only actual size I had the option to get, so I couldn't really pass that down, but it's about my normal size. And like most Adidas boots, there was a little bit of extra room in the toe and the width was fine, but you know, I didn't really feel like that space in the toe was anything to really write home about or cause any real issues. Now, what I will say is I don't think I would go down 0.5 or half a size in these next time I get these, if I do get these again. And I know a lot of people, at least from what I've heard, have always told me, oh, well, if I'm getting a laceless boot, I go down half a size. For me, I've never been able to do that, and I refuse to do that. I'd rather have just a little bit of extra room in the toe than have my entire foot squeezed, because the width just is never enough when I go down half a size because I have super wide feet. But if you have narrow feet, maybe you could get away with it, but I'm gonna be honest, my real size in Adidas is probably an 8.75 with a wide toe box and midfoot. So I'll never really get to experience that, but that's just what I think my size is. And to be honest, I would not get a laceless boot if this was going to be a boot I wanted to wear long term other than doing a review. I just get laceless boots to do reviews on. So my opinion would be I'd rather have a little bit of extra space in the toe and just have a lacing system that will provide enough lockdown so my feet don't slip everywhere than kind of get a boot that is a little too small and I hope it stretches and go through a really painful process. So if I were to recommend a size, I would say go with your normal Adidas size. So whatever you've worn the Adidas X models in for the past 4 or 5 years, so the 18.1, the 19.1, Ghosted, Speedflow, etc., get the same size, get your 9 US. If you wore the Crazy Fast in a 9, get a 9. To piggyback off size and fit, I'm gonna talk about comfort real quick. And to be honest, I did not have as great of a time in these boots as I did in the laced ones here. I thought these were super comfortable. I never had any issues with these. With this boot, I felt for some reason, for whatever reason, I had a lot of stud pressure on the outsides of my feet here. So right here. And again, I couldn't tell you why that is, what the difference is, because it's the same sole plate and it's mostly the same upper. In fact, I want to say it's the exact same upper now that I'm looking at it, except this one is obviously cut out and doesn't have the knit lacing system. And then this obviously has the compression fit lacing system. So it just wasn't as comfortable. The pain lasted a lot longer than I would have liked it to when breaking in a pair of boots. So let's say I probably played 3 or 4 like small sided games in these before I finally felt they were comfortable. Today I wore them and didn't have really many issues at all, maybe in the first 5 minutes, and these are like 45-minute games, but after that it went away. So I'm happy to say that the break-in for this was decent. And while we're talking about break-in, we might as well say it, it's probably gonna take you about 1.5 to 2 hours to really break these boots in. I would say the lockdown is about the same as the Adidas X Crazy Fast LL. I've not worn any other laceless X model, but the lockdown is the same. And kind of my always rule of thumb personally is If I'm getting laceless boots, I value comfort. Well, the comfort will be a bit more than it would be with the lace version, but you lose a little bit of lockdown. But in this case, for this boot, when comparing it to what I believe is the plus model for the new F50 Elite, you got a little bit of less comfort and a little bit of less lockdown. Nothing crazy to where I would never wear these boots again, but enough to kind of be like, eh. But the lockdown is, again, as expected for a laceless boot, and I always wore true socks with them. Well, 99% of the time. So just keep that in mind when I talk about lockdown. If you're wearing regular socks with these, you might slip around a bit more, especially if they're not quite a perfect fit like these are for me, how there's just a little bit of extra room in the toe. So just know if you get these boots, the lockdown's not gonna be as good. One thing that surprised me about both the laceless and laced versions of this boot that I have is the durability. Now, with Adidas's boots recently, the durability has been garbage, but with these boots, I feel like they've been pretty good. Now, I do have a little bit of separation on this boot, but there's no real toe separation at all. It's just a little bit around this like stud here. I am tired of Adidas not putting enough effort into either quality control or durability or both for their boots, because I've had a lot of pairs recently that have just started separating after, 10 hours of wearing. And if you're someone who's only buying maybe 1 to 2 pairs of boots a year and you're spending, $250 on a pair of boots, you want them to last for a long time. You don't want them to last for 10 hours? So what is that? A couple games, maybe a couple practices. You have them for 2 weeks and they're separating. Like, that is, to me, not acceptable. And, like I said, these held together okay. And there's maybe slight separation on this pair, but we've got to figure something out, because not everybody is a boot head. And like a lot of the other boot heads I know who are spending hundreds of dollars each month on boots to either review them or just to wear them. And it's getting ridiculous, especially if you're someone who only buys a few pairs of boots. And that kind of pushes me away from bigger brands when I'm suggesting boots to people who, I get DMs all the time like, hey, I'm only buying, 1 or 2 pairs of boots a year, or what is the best boot for like $200 or something like that. I usually push them more towards like a Adler boot or a Mizuno boot, not because I think they're the best boots out there. I mean, they are very, very close to being up there, but the durability is just there. They're handmade, they're made with care, and they're gonna last you a long time. Like, why am I spending $250 on a pair of boots when I'm sure the takedown models of these are gonna last longer than the actual boot does? It just doesn't make sense. So hopefully they'll fix this problem. I really, really doubt they will, but maybe one day they'll listen to a niche boot reviewer. We'll see. Overall, I had a pleasant enough experience with the Adidas X F50 Elite LL, even though, I said, I didn't have as much comfortability with it and had a couple other issues. Mostly, I liked it because it's cool having a pair of boots before they release, several months before they release. And the few people who are boot heads, when you show up to, small-sided or practices for your club or whatever, like, what's on your feet? You're always kind of like, yeah, I got that unreleased stuff. But it was cool to wear these. I think that if you're an enjoyer of the crazyfast LL, the speedportal LL, or I guess it was the plus model back then, or any sort of laceless Adidas speed boot, you're gonna enjoy this boot a lot. I will say this is nothing like the Adidas F50s have been. And I didn't mention that earlier in the review, but don't think that because you're getting a boot that has the F50 logo on it, they're bringing back all this nostalgia with the Predators, like, oh, it's gonna be just like the Adizero Primes or the Sambas or whatever other names they had for the Adizeros. It's not. It's its own boot. But I think that it's cool they're bringing back some sort of culture to their boots, because lately there's just been nothing. And the F50 I feel like was a huge boot in culture. It's still probably the most popular speed boot on the market, and I think it always will be. But now we have something like this. It's gonna be cool to at least have that nostalgia again when we're playing, and I'm hoping that this gives us room for some pretty cool remakes. To be honest, I think it would be cool if we got some sort of remake. We've already had the Battle Pack and like a leather-ish F50 remake. I don't really consider that an F50 remake, but this Soleplate, if you slap on the 2014, 2013 Adidas upper, I think is gonna be absolutely insane. So I'm very excited to see what kind of remakes we'll get. A Chameleon remake would be cool. I don't really count that Unisport Memory Lane F50 as the actual Chameleon one, even though they did a phenomenal job designing it. I think we can get a legit Chameleon one. And I do know that a friend of mine who is a boot seller sold a pair of F50 Spiders. I think they were used, but he sold a pair of F50 Spiders, I want to say 2 years ago now, to somebody at the Adidas HQ. It was shipped directly to Adidas HQ in Germany. So that means they're dissecting that boot most likely, because they have an archive of everything they've ever made, so they don't need more. So they're probably dissecting that, getting all the plans correct for a F50 Spider remake, which would be sick, because that's probably one of the best F50s ever made from what I've heard. I've never worn them, but just something we could get. So overall, if I had to rate this boot, I would give it somewhere around a C+, so let's say a 7.8, 7.9. Again, not a very high rating, but I'm just not someone who enjoys the speed boots that are laceless. It's not my cup of tea, but if you're somebody who enjoys these, I think you'll rate them a lot higher, especially if you like those crazy fast LLs. You're definitely gonna wanna get a pair of these, and you're gonna enjoy it. So that's all I have for you guys today. I'm trying to make the setup a lot cooler, so you might see some changes, might see a couple different angle adjustments, but just trying to bring you guys some better content. I've got more reviews coming soon. I think I have about 5 or 6 pairs in the pipeline, and I want to say 3 or 4 different brands. So we're getting a lot of popular stuff, some niche stuff, some stuff that was actually sent to me, which is super cool. I'm excited for that. That'll all come in time. Thank you for watching. Please make sure to check out the rest of the channel. There's tons of reviews on there, tons of cool facts and videos. Drop a like, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next review.